Ferrari found something that should not exist. 8/10 lost, without apparent explanation. And the most disturbing thing, it doesn't come from the engine, it comes from the invisible heart of the car. In the middle of sprint qualifying in Miami 2026, while everyone was looking at the times, in Maranello they were seeing something else. A silent failure that activates at the worst moment and leaves Hamilton completely exposed on the straight. The question is inevitable and changes the entire narrative. Has Ferrari been racing a defective car, without really knowing it until now? Leave me your comments so I know what you think. The problem appeared before going out on the track. Not on the sprint. Not in the classification. Much earlier. In the internal analysis that Ferrari carried out after Suzuka, when Hamilton reported a clear feeling, the car was not pushing on the straight. That was the starting point. Maranello engineers began to cross-reference telemetry, simulator, and track behavior data. And what they found was the real trigger of this whole story. The SF26 was not failing in a single area, it was failing in several at the same time, generating a combined loss of up to 9/10 per lap in top speed. Here's the critical thing. It wasn't the engine. It was the interaction between systems. In Suzuka, this problem became brutally visible. A simple oversteer in a fast corner activated the energy management system. The car automatically reduced electrical deployment to protect components. Immediate result: massive loss of performance right on the most important straight of the circuit. That moment changed everything. Because Ferrari understood that it was not dealing with a specific failure, but rather with a structural behavior of the car. A pattern that could be repeated on any circuit, and especially in Miami where top speed is decisive. From there, the team made a radical decision: redesign half the car in the middle of the championship. But that move had an obvious risk. And that's what explains what happened next in the sprint qualifiers. Ferrari made an extreme decision. Change half a car in the middle of the championship. And that opened up a second, even more delicate problem. Understanding what works, and what is making everything worse. Package 1.5 is not a normal evolution. It's an aggressive rebuild of SF26. New floor rear aerodynamic redesign, airflow adjustments, and an optimized hydraulic system to stabilize the car at high speed. Everything focused on one objective: recover the top speed that Hamilton had pointed out as the great deficit. But there is a key detail that changes the reading. Ferrari introduced too many changes at the same time. And in Formula One that has an immediate cost. Clarity is lost. It is not known which piece works, which does not, and how they interact with each other. The car enters a gray area where each adjustment can generate unpredictable side effects. Here the most controversial element appears: the return of the Macarena rear wing. A concept that had already been discarded in the preseason due to balance problems, but now returns with an optimized version seeking to gain up to 10 km/h on a straight line. The bet is clear: sacrifice stability to regain speed. And that connects directly with what was seen on the track. Because while Leclerc managed to extract performance and set competitive benchmarks in the initial phases, Hamilton never found that optimal window. Half a second difference between the two in SQ2 is no coincidence. It is a symptom of a car that is extremely sensitive to settings. This is where the human factor comes in. Hamilton is not just adapting to the car. He is also building a relationship with a new career engineer. In this era where energy management adjusts curve by curve, that connection is decisive. Without perfect synchronization, the system does not respond as it should. And that leaves an uncomfortable conclusion. Ferrari doesn't just fight against its rivals. He's fighting his own car. But the most critical thing has not yet arrived. Because this whole scenario leads to a moment where the technical, sporting, and strategic pressure explodes at the same time. Reality hit without warning. And he did it at the worst possible moment. Miami's SQ3. After all the work, all the analysis, changing half the car, Ferrari reached the critical point where it had to confirm its recovery. And what happened was exactly the opposite. Leclerc, fourth, 3/10 behind the leader. Competitive but insufficient. Hamilton, seventh at almost 8/10. Out of the real fight. This is the breaking point. Because when a car improves in theory but does not respond at the decisive moment, the problem stops being technical and becomes structural. The SF26 showed its greatest weakness. It cannot withstand the pressure of the limit. In SQ1 and SQ2, the car hints at performance. Reply. It's getting closer. But when everything depends on a single perfect turn, the system collapses. The energy management fails, the top speed does not appear, and the pilot is exposed. And here appears the data that is most worrying within Ferrari. Hamilton expected more. He said it clearly. The disappointment is not only because of the position, it is because the package has not delivered what it promised. This completely changes the internal narrative of the team, because it is no longer about improving tenths. It's about understanding why, after a massive update, the car is still unresponsive in real qualifying conditions. And meanwhile, rivals are not waiting. McLaren dominates. Mercedes maintains advantage in power unit. And Ferrari remains caught between theoretical potential and actual execution. The crisis is not visible in the table, but it is in the behavior of the car. And at this point, the question is no longer technical, strategic. Has Ferrari gone all in on a solution it still doesn't fully understand, and which could be further complicating Hamilton's performance? Everything is decided in a last letter. And Ferrari has it, although it does not depend only on them. After the hit in the sprint classification, the scenario changes completely. It is no longer about finding pure performance, but about taking advantage of any external variable that breaks the established order. And that variable is rain. Hamilton arrives with an advantage that no other driver has: real kilometers in the wet with the SF26. 2 full days at Fiorano understanding how the car responds when grip disappears and energy management becomes critical. This is where everything can transform. Because in the dry, Ferrari suffers from top speed and from that unstable system that appears at key moments. But in rain, that deficit is reduced. Power is no longer the dominant factor. And something much more decisive comes into play: the driver's sensitivity and the ability to interpret the car lap by lap. And in that field, Hamilton continues to be an absolute reference. This is the actual climax of the story. Ferrari doesn't have the best car right now. Not the most consistent either. But it does have an unexpected opportunity to change the narrative in a single Sunday. If the rain appears, all the previous analysis loses weight. The differences are compressed. The errors multiply. And the pilots make the difference. Here Ferrari can go from being lost to being a protagonist. But if it doesn't rain, reality will be much harsher. Because then the SF26 will once again face its own limits. To that structural problem that has already been discovered but not solved. And there is no room to hide. This is the final transformation point. Ferrari has gone from believing that it was fighting to win, to depending on the conditions to survive. And that perfectly defines where the team is at this point in the season. The opportunity exists, but it is not completely in your hands. Ferrari has crossed an invisible line. It is no longer in the testing phase. It is in the trial phase. What happened in Miami is not an isolated result. It's a warning. The team has discovered a deep issue in SF26, responded with a massive update, and yet real performance is still missing when it matters most. That leaves a conclusion that weighs inside and outside of Maranello. The problem was not just finding the fault. It was understanding everything that this failure entails. Because now Ferrari faces a much more complex dilemma. Each new improvement can bring them closer, or further destabilize a car that has already proven to be extremely sensitive. Hamilton represents exactly that point of tension. Experience, technical reading, ability to adapt. But even with all that, the margin is minimal when the car does not respond consistently. And meanwhile, the championship does not stop. McLaren executes. Mercedes optimizes. And Ferrari tries to rebuild itself in the middle of the battle. This is the real moment of the season. Not the one with the promises. Not the one with the simulations. The moment that defines whether Ferrari can correct course, or if this 2026 will become another year of lost opportunities. The final question is not technical. It is direct. Is Ferrari building the comeback? Or is it entering a deeper crisis than it seems? If this analysis has changed the way you see what happened in Miami, now is the time to leave a clear opinion. Because it's not just about results here. It's about understanding what is really happening within the most historic team in Formula One. Everything is decided in a last letter. And Ferrari has it, although it does not depend only on them. After the hit in the sprint classification, the scenario changes completely. It is no longer about finding pure performance, but about taking advantage of any external variable that breaks the established order. And that variable is rain. Hamilton arrives with an advantage that no other driver has: real kilometers in the wet with the SF26. 2 full days at Fiorano understanding how the car responds when grip disappears and energy management becomes critical. This is where everything can transform. Because in the dry, Ferrari suffers from top speed and from that unstable system that appears at key moments. But in rain, that deficit is reduced. Power is no longer the dominant factor. And something much more decisive comes into play: the driver's sensitivity and the ability to interpret the car lap by lap. And in that field, Hamilton continues to be an absolute reference. This is the actual climax of the story. Ferrari doesn't have the best car right now. Not the most consistent either. But it does have an unexpected opportunity to change the narrative in a single Sunday. If the rain appears, all the previous analysis loses weight. The differences are compressed. The errors multiply. And the pilots make the difference. Here Ferrari can go from being lost to being a protagonist. But if it doesn't rain, reality will be much harsher. Because then the SF26 will once again face its own limits. To that structural problem that has already been discovered but not solved. And there is no room to hide. This is the final transformation point. Ferrari has gone from believing that it was fighting to win, to depending on the conditions to survive. And that perfectly defines where the team is at this point in the season. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.